There, you may have heard a tone there, just letting you know that the meeting is being recorded. We do that so that if you have a neighbor or someone who wasn't able to join us tonight, we'll make this video available and they can watch all of the excitement there at a later time. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Hammond. I am a consultant working for the Nashville Department of Transportation. That's the NDOT that you see down there in the lower right-hand corner. Appreciate everyone taking their time this evening to talk about potential traffic calming project on Cedarmont Drive. And we have with us very special guest, Councilman John Rutherford. Councilman, appreciate you being here with us tonight. Anything you want to start with before we get underway here?
Well, I don't know how special I am. I'll start with that, but I appreciate the accolade. But no, I wanted to jump on and check all of this out. I personally frequent Cedarmont quite a bit myself because I live in Barnes Cove, just off of Barnes Road, and so I'm very, very familiar with Cedarmont and that general area. And certainly there have been some traffic issues along that way that I'm sure traffic calming can certainly help to alleviate. And so I'm anxious to be a part of this process. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for taking your time to join us. You guys stay on the council, stay really busy, and that means a lot. So appreciate you joining. And you're all special guests. Thank you all for taking your time as we talk about your neighborhood here. Just a couple of housekeeping things. I did mention that this is being recorded. The other thing is we do allow you to mute or unmute yourself. So as we go through this presentation, feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or want to make a comment. That's why we're here. We try to treat these as much like we're all in the same room physically as we can. So feel free to do that. But otherwise, it usually works better if you stay muted if you don't have a comment for the rest of the group. You can also use a chat feature. You may see the little chat symbol there. Feel free to use that as well. I will try to monitor that. I don't always do such a good job handling all of that. So if you don't mind speaking up, that usually works a little bit better. And I think that's it. Three things I want to cover tonight, what I hope we can accomplish. The first thing is I'll give you a little bit of background about the traffic calming program and how Cedarmont got inducted into it. The second thing we want to do is show you a very preliminary concept for what traffic calming might consist of on the street. And then the third thing is kind of give you some next steps, what you can expect from us, where we're going from here, some timeline type questions and that sort of thing. So that's where we're going. We'll start with some of the background information. Most people, and I'll go fairly quickly through this, most people have become familiar with the traffic calming program here in Nashville. You guys have traffic calming already near to you, and so you may be aware of the process, but I'll cover that. Let me mention this before we go any further with the subject here. You see this QR code, and this may have been, if you got a little card for this meeting, this QR code was on that card as well. This leads us to kind of the official feedback page for all of our traffic calming projects. It's really new. It's a pretty neat deal. It's called Engage Nashville, and NDOT, and I think a couple of other departments are using this as a clearinghouse for all things input. So, you know, to log your feedback and comments and questions that you have, feel free to scan that. You'll just scroll down through a list of projects, find Cedarmont, click on that, and then you'll have a wealth of opportunities there that come back to us, and we'll get responses back out on those questions. But a little bit about traffic calming. It is a residential program. We try to limit this to residential areas. We don't traffic calm industrial areas or business corridors and things like that, largely because this is two things. It's a safety issue, traffic speeds are, as well as just a quality of life issue. And we know sometimes this speeding affects you in neighborhoods, in your home, where you live, where you want to walk, and I mean, sometimes even just check the mail. You know, it really can become a real issue with those quality of life type issues. We do focus on physical solutions as opposed to signage or enforcement and things like that. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but we have found things like speed cushions, things that you have to drive over, things that you have to drive around, slow traffic the best. There's just no other way to say that. And so that's really what we focus on more. We do have some other tools, and we'll look at those. And then we try to work on speed reduction, as opposed to some people want to engage our program to say, can't you just make traffic go somewhere else? And that's not our objective. We try to keep traffic where it is. Sometimes it is because of cut through traffic. And in that case, if we can keep it on those busier roads, we try to do that. But for the most part, people are going to come through your neighborhood or anybody's neighborhood just because that's the shortest path. And so we really focus on trying to get them to do that in a responsible way, just by driving slower in our neighborhoods. I did mention enforcement. People often ask, can't we just get MNPD to park a cruiser out and write some tickets? And wouldn't that be helpful? And we always say, I think it would. I think that would be very helpful, but they'll be the first to tell you, first of all, we're really great partners with MNPD and all our emergency responders, but they are very busy out doing a lot of other important work, and they don't always have the ability to prioritize traffic enforcement, and they'll tell you the same thing, and that's just the reality of it. And so what NDOT is work within NDOT's purview, which is the public right of way. This department can affect changes to our streets and try to introduce some tools there that self-enforce slower speeds. And that's what we mean when we say, well, this is really an engineering component. We're working with street cars, and that more and more prominent, the activity of people walking. I know, like in your neighborhood on Anderson, you have new sidewalks, and that's great, but not every street has those. And so, pedestrian and cyclists and kids in the street, people walking the transit, all of these uses are very viable needs for a street. And when we have evidence like this talking about the impact of speed in the devastating case where you might have a crash with a pedestrian, the chance of survivability, for instance, goes way up if that speed is slower. So just one piece of evidence that we like to point to. Traffic calming is also a very popular program. We continue to get a lot of applications into this program. We do 2 application windows per year, you may know. And as of this latest one, we still have a backlog of over 600 streets, just like this one. People have said, we have a record, we think we have a speeding problem. Will you guys come check it out and do something about that? And of course, we can't get to 600 streets, not immediately. And so we have a prioritization process. But we like to show this just to say, you guys are not alone in this. A lot of people have noticed, speeding behavior, and there's a lot of demand for this service. So for better or worse, I guess congratulations, or I'm sorry, just depending on how you look at it. Your street rose to the top when it comes to that. You were one of 25 streets selected in this latest cohort. So this process now is not about, do you have a project, do you not, is there funding or not? You're in the program if you want it. And so that's what we're here to do tonight, to kind of work with you and just take your temperature on the type of project you're hoping for, and how we can go about bringing that to fruition. We always like at this point just to point out one thing, which is if you're not familiar with Hub Nashville, it's a great resource. We talked about all of the requests we get for traffic calming, but sometimes people request things like a sidewalk or like a new stop sign or things like that are just really not tools in this program. But this is where you would request that. It's a great way to go in. Either online, or you can call and talk to an operator there and log these types of requests, not just NDOT, not just related to infrastructure, but a lot of services from Metro government are there. So it's a great way, if you're not familiar, hub.Nashville.gov. But I mentioned a prioritization process, and this is how we look at all of those requests. When we get 600 requests for projects in, this is how we rank those. We go out and we collect data on every one of those. And so we've got some data on Cedarmont that I'll show you. But we weight those. And so 70% of the score that we use to prioritize these projects are things that you probably expect. It's the speed of traffic on your street, and it's the volume of vehicles. That is the number of cars driving on your street every day. The other 30% have to do with other users, like we talked about. Are there accommodations for a pedestrian? So, for instance, if you had sidewalks on the street, your score would actually go down. You get higher points, you get moved up in the process. If you don't have any sidewalks, there's no safe place for a pedestrian to walk. Are you in a neighborhood that has things like schools, libraries, parks, things that people may want to make a walking trip to, for instance? And then also, do you have a documented case of a pedestrian crash on the street? We look at all of that stuff as well, and all of that goes into the score. And so we take all of that information, roll it all together, and prioritize those things. And that's where I say you guys were in the top 25 this time. Here's some of the data that we collected specifically on your street. You all have a 85th percentile speed of 35 miles an hour. What that means is 15% of the cars that we collected when we were out there were going faster than 35. And so it's just a statistical way that in our industry we use to look at speeds. And so we look at that relative to all the other streets that we collected as well. You have about 3,500 cars a day on the street, pretty healthy volume. You know, you're connecting two major roads from Barnes to Old Hickory, and so that doesn't surprise us. We will do traffic calming like this on streets up to about 5,000 cars a day. So you're well within our thresholds. That doesn't worry us, but it's on the higher side, I would say, in terms of the amount of volume that you've got on your street. You have a very wide street, as you probably know. It's 38 feet wide, give or take. I know there's a lot of parking, at least on the south end of the street, and then somewhere along the middle, a bike lane shows up and has a, we call it a buffered bike lane. There's that little striped out area with sort of nothing, and then the bike lane on the outside of that. So we're aware of that. And all of that just becomes part of the design that we would have to work with if we're going to do something like speed cushions, just to make sure we're accounting for that. We'll hear from you tonight. You can let us know your thoughts, but typically in these projects, we don't look to change any of that. We're not adding things like lanes or turn lanes, or we typically don't add bike lanes or get rid of bike lanes, things like that. So, just know we typically work with the street as it functions today. And then lastly, this is a longer project, believe it or not. 1 mile is on the longer side. And so when I show you that map, just keep that in mind. It may look like a lot going on, but that is over the course of a fairly long street for us in our program. Here's a map. I know it's probably a little hard to read unless you're really close to your screen, but it's that green line that the big yellow arrow is pointing to. This is a map we'd like to show because it is available to you. It's an interactive map on NDOT's traffic calming website. That means you can go in there, you can pan around, you can zoom in, you can click on these lines, and it'll tell you a little bit about each project. But all the green line means is that we're kind of in the phase where we are tonight. We're meeting with you. We're trying to work out what this design will look like. Some other colors on here we point out. There's a purple line. You see, looks like on Old Hickory Boulevard, a section of it right next to you. Those may become important because those are streets that have applied for traffic calming but have not been selected. So if you're curious if there's another street in your neighborhood that we already have an application on it, you can go in here and find out. I don't see any in this screen, but as you pan around, you might also see some blue lines, blue dashed lines, and that just means that there's already been a traffic calming project implemented. So if you weren't familiar with where to go to see something like speed cushions already on the ground, you could go to this map and it would show you the closest place to you that you could go experience what a traffic calming project could look like. So that's just a couple of instances where how this map may be useful to you. All right, I'm going to talk some about the tools that we have at our disposal in this program. And we'll start with this one, which was really the bread and butter. I've already mentioned a couple of the times. Speed cushion, you've probably seen these. They're becoming more and more common in neighborhoods for traffic calming. It is a fabricated, very high density rubber device that is purchased. And I say that because that means everyone that comes off the line is the same. And we like that. We like that consistency. We think it's also good for neighbors because they know what they're getting. You know, you can go drive these in other places, and how it feels to you on one street will be pretty much how it feels to you on your street. And so they're holding up well. They've got a very good durability. They stay looking pretty good. You know, they don't get worn out and too shabby. We've had them now on the street for some of them 10 and 12 years, and they still look pretty good. And so this is a pretty typical, couple of pictures of some pretty typical designs. You see different configurations. Sometimes it's 2 side by side, sometimes it's 3. I think we've got streets where we've gone up to 5 wide just because the street is so wide. And the only difference there is we're just trying to make sure that someone cannot drive around them. That's the one stipulation. If we give people too much room, even if that means sometimes they leave the side of the road, they will do it. They will try to drive around these. And so we work really hard with our design to make sure that that's not possible. I think your street is curbed on both sides. I think there's a curb, so that's not as likely that someone is going to do that. But we've got ways to present that further. We do sign most locations, like you see in the upper left-hand picture. It looks like someone saying you're not seeing the cushions. Looks like you should be seeing that slide.
You can see the cushions.
Okay, all right.
In the map.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you got the cushions now? Okay.
I'm still seeing the map, but okay.
Okay. Let me back up. I don't know. Hopefully it'll catch up here in just a second. So it's just some pictures of the speed cushions that we use. They're only about 3 inches high, you know, off the ground, but most people will tell you that's enough. We have pretty good record that, you know, pretty good evidence that these do slow speed down. We can vary the length of them. They're all 6 feet wide. We really can't vary that. That's kind of common to the wheelbase of the car. So most cars cannot straddle these. Almost no car can completely straddle these. But bigger vehicles get closer to being able to pass right over the top of these. And that's the reason why we use these speed cushions, because our emergency responders have those bigger wheelbase vehicles. So these do not impact things like fire trucks, ambulances, and so forth nearly as much as they may in your Volkswagen or your Honda. So we use it for those reasons. Even very large trucks, though, big full-size pickup trucks, still are impacted by them, and we see slowing down for almost every vehicle there. But we can vary the length of them. The shorter ones are 7 feet long in the direction of travel. We try to reserve those for some of our more urban streets. The shorter they rural areas where maybe more, a little closer to a 30-mile-an-hour speed is more appropriate. Our default, where we've kind of settled on for most neighborhoods, and I would put yours in this category, is the 10.5-foot cushions. You guys are kind of a suburban context there, and so we think that would probably give us the best result. The next tool is really a close cousin to the speed cushion. Speed table, made by the same firm, feels the same way. It's just obviously a little bit of a different configuration. That is, it goes all the way across the road and does not have those brakes in it. So we're not using these nearly as much because of the emergency response situation. And then probably especially on a street with as high traffic volume as yours, we would be very cautious about using something like this. But occasionally they do have their place. You're seeing them in parks, some in some places, where that emergency response is not quite as critical. We do have some before and after data. I'm really cautious about using this because I always say that every street's a little bit different. Every street is starting at a different speed, and so how much decrease in speed we might see, I think varies pretty greatly. But I think it's pretty safe to say, if we're seeing on average 9 to 11 mile an hour decreases, that's not surprising. So they're having a pretty good impact. And one thing about this is that impact tends to last, unlike probably some of the other tools that we have, where you may get a very good initial impact, but over time, people might get used to it or different things, and we see that impact wane. Here, we don't see that as much. One of those tools may be the feedback sign. This is a different tool that we can use. This is a tool that is more for information. And so some people swear by them and say it has worked wonders in our neighborhood. We love them. Other people say it worked great at first, and I'm not so sure anymore because people have gotten used to it. So it certainly has its place. We will often supplement a speed cushion project with something like this. If we have a big hill or sharp curves, or for some other reason, speed cushions don't work as well, we will sometimes use a feedback sign to kind of bridge the gap there, but can certainly be a helpful tool. Sometimes we will narrow a street. We know that if a street looks very wide visually, as yours does, it is a wide street. Sometimes we can introduce pavement markings, edge lines mostly, to visually narrow those, and sometimes that will bring about a slower speed. So that's a tool that we have as well. A little bit more of an advanced topic in pavement markings would be at intersections. We can do something like bulb outs, where we shorten the radius of some very large radius curves. If we've got people that turn onto the street or off of the street at a very high rate of speed, sometimes if we can visually or physically shrink that down a little bit, some people will slow down. Marking by itself doesn't typically do it. We often need something physical in the street, like you see in that upper right-hand picture there, where we have those little plastic sticks that you see sometimes. People don't want to run over those, and so those can be a good deterrent to slow people down that way. We're using this more in urban areas where we have a lot of pedestrian activity. There's some other benefits as well, but anyhow, that is a possibility. And then chicanes is a very specialized one. It works well occasionally if the conditions are just right, but there's only about 2 or 3 streets in all of Davidson County that have this. It's really an artificial meandering of the street and kind of gets cars to weave side to side. It works okay if you've got some parking there, like you see in this picture, but we haven't introduced one of these in a while. And then lastly, the traffic circle, good for an intersection, but again, with a big asterisk besides it, which is things like school buses can have a really tough time with these. And so we're really careful, and the conditions need to be just right. It also takes an awful lot of pavement for these to be a good solution. But I'm going to talk more about that traffic circle in just a second. And so here is and I apologize if you're just calling in. All of that stuff is probably just information. This is where it would be great if you can see it, but I will describe what we're looking at here, and then hopefully you'll have an opportunity to maybe look at the recording, or we can get you this image. This is a very preliminary concept for a traffic calming or a speed cushion project on Cedarmont. And so let me just describe it. On the left-hand side of the screen, you've got the end of our project at Barnes Road. The stop sign there is just indicating that we know that Cedarmont comes to a stop there at Barnes. And on the right-hand side, running north-south, is Old Every Boulevard. And by the way, by north-south. That is actually pointed to the right on this picture. So I know that Old Hickory actually runs east-west in this area. But where you see the traffic signal, that's the end of our project. That's the light there at Cedarmont and Old Hickory Boulevard. In the middle, you see a little cluster of stop signs. That's the always stop that is at Cedarmont Circle that you're familiar with. In between the Barnes Road and the always stop, we have a series of 5 speed cushions. This is where I say, keep in mind, this is over the course of a 1-mile project. So it might look like a lot of speed cushions on this. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 sets, but that's over the course of a mile. And so the way we come up with 8 sets, 5 on the I guess southern end of the project and 3 on the northern end of the project. We know that if we're going to use speed cushions, there's a kind of a magic spacing that we're looking for, and that number is somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 600 feet. If we can space our speed cushions regularly somewhere in that area, we should get a good progressed slow speed all the way through. That's close enough together that someone's not going to clear a set of speed cushions and then mash the gas to get to the next one. But it's not so far apart, but it's not so close together. I guess it's far enough apart that they do that, but it's also comfortable enough that it's just not totally onerous on you all who have to drive it every day, or will push traffic to some other street. Because again, our goal is not to do that. And as you can kind of see on this map, there's sort of some other ways around. None of them are very direct, but someone could avoid, I guess, this street by cutting through other neighborhood streets. We don't want that to happen. So if we're in that magic number of 400 to 600 feet, we usually will have pretty good success there. In this case, we look at the distance between all of these stop signs and divide that out by, in this case, we're right around 500 feet spacing, which is really good. So that's how we come up with 5 speed cushion locations on the south side and 3 on the north side. I guess I mentioned the traffic circle. I did look at that and consider that probably the most likely place that would be at the always stop. But I'm not recommending it now. I'd like to hear from you all, but a lot of times we find when an intersection is already an always stop, by putting a circle in the middle of that, people begin to get really confused. They're like, well, does that still mean I stop? Or now does some people go and some people yield? And neighborhood traffic circles are kind of notorious for people not really understanding it that well. Again, when we get larger vehicles like school buses, I assume you've got coming through your neighborhood. I don't know. I've not worked with MNPS on that, but if you have turns for school buses or larger trucks, even sometimes like a landscaping guy with his trailer can have real problems navigating a circle. They often will turn in front of it. And to me, that's not the end of the world, but it's certainly not ideal. Again, it just kind of gets to the confusion of it. But then the last thing, and which it can be difficult in this situation, is the bike lanes. And so a circle would just naturally put cars in the path if there were a bicyclist there. And so that conflict on the bike lanes is a consideration as well. I've talked a lot, and I'm sorry about that. I'm going to shut up for a minute. And I'd love to hear if people have comments about this, about the whole process in general, about what you're seeing here. You like it, you hate it, whatever you want to tell us at this point. I'm going to open the floor up, and I'd like to hear some feedback, if you don't mind.
This is Nancy Parker. I actually am on the corner of Cedar Creek and Cedarmont. I'm the old lady in the neighborhood. I generally do take a walk, which takes me from Cedar Creek down to Maxine Drive. And sometimes I go Cedarmont Circle. And right there at that 4-way stop, I was actually walking by the other day and was thinking about a traffic circle, but it's not a big area. But the one thing that needs to be addressed there, and I don't know how you would do this, but somebody does wheelies in it. You go by and you can see where they burn their tires in the road. And in my walks, I have actually seen, I'm going again towards Barnes Road, and people blow right through that stop sign. They don't even make an attempt on stopping, whether they don't realize it's there or whatever. I have noticed new stops, new traffic signs, speed signs, 25 miles an hour, which is great. And also some posts saying no parking here to corner, to open up those corners so people can't park there. But I am a senior citizen and I have mobility issues, and yes, I'm walking in the road. So yeah, the speed they come down there concerns me. But I've noticed some of those changes, which are good. I think some more needs in how you stop the wheelies. I'll leave that in your very capable hands.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. I have a comment.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Steve Minton. I live 3 doors from south of the stop sign there, the 4-way stop, Cedarmont and Cedarmont Circle. You know, they changed the speed from 35 to 25. And I thought, well, that's great. Problem is, people started driving 10 miles an hour faster instead of 10 miles an hour slower. They, as Miss Nancy said, a lot of times they run that stop sign, and that's an intentional act. It's not that they don't realize it's there. That's just an intentional act. But people coming from the north going south toward Barnes Road will come to that stop sign and treat it like a triple tree at a drag strip, and take off and then slam on their brakes up about Vicky Court there, which is, you know, what, 75 or 100 feet past where you have a marking for a speed cushion.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. You know, myself and my neighbor across the street, we were talking about it. We need those speed cushions relatively, you know, within a reasonable distance from that stop sign, because, like I say, they treat it like a drag strip. And like Miss Nancy said, yeah, there's 3 or 4 cars. I've actually witnessed it, them turning donuts in the 4-way at the 4-way stop sign there.
So you're saying they pull up to the stop sign, stop, and then just like they're testing their acceleration, they'll take off as fast as they can.
Oh yeah.
But then why do they stop again? Why do they slam their brakes?
Well, they're not stopping. I say they start hitting their brakes about Vicky Court because you're going into a curve and going uphill.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
So it's like they treat it like a little drag strip there.
Yeah.
And like Miss Nancy said, they some people that I've witnessed it several times. As a matter of fact, I was standing in my front yard talking to a cop about my mailbox being ran over, and we watched 2 people go right straight through that stop sign. Me and a policeman with the car parked right in front of my, 150, 200 feet from the stop sign, and just drive right through it.
Okay.
I mean,
well, I thought
these people are idiots around here.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, we often hear this when there's an always stop that nobody ever stops. We hear that, and that's why I initially started thinking about a circle in that intersection. But then, for the reasons I mentioned, I think better of it. But I do think hearing this, which I thought we might hear, we can certainly cheat a couple of those cushions a little back closer to the intersection, which is probably what I would recommend, and just make sure that, because right now, even that gap from the always stop to the first set of cushions, regardless of which side you're looking at, is about 500 feet. So I would probably cheat those back a little bit, to the point where, hopefully we're close enough that they don't do that, coming right off of the stop sign.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's good input. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Our speed cushions themselves, I probably didn't give we don't have a lot of other things to offer, but is that what everyone was sort of thinking or hoping for with the traffic calming project?
I was, yes, sir.
Okay.
So I think speed cushion is a very good idea. So I live in Cedarmont, and in the last 6 to 7 years, we've had cars turn over in yards. We've had them hit trees. We've had them take out water meters. It's so much going on Cedarmont. So I imagine if you research Cedarmont, not only just the cars racing up and down, we've had a death on Cedarmont. I would think that, just someone living on Cedarmont, and if I had younger kids, my kids never rode their bicycle on Cedarmont because we were afraid. And it's the same, some of them are the same vehicles that comes by there and just blow it out. From Maxine on up to Old Hickory, they just blow it out. They're speeding. And I wanted to ask, why was there the bicycle lane put just up to Maxine, and from Maxine on to Barnes Road, there's no bike lane? And actually, it looks like a junkyard down there. Some of those cars doesn't have plates on them. They're just there year after year. Could you answer that question for me?
I'm not sure I can in terms of why was the bike lane stopped where it stopped. I don't have that history.
I can help you with that.
Okay, it's a very valid question. All I could say is there is maybe a difference in parking, but we'll let someone who was here at the time that knows that. Was that Mr. Young?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, when we had the bike lanes installed, the reason that we were given why it wasn't extended to Barnes Road is due to how narrow they felt like that area was from basically Maxine to Barnes Road. That was the reason that we were given. It just wasn't enough room there to accommodate that.
Okay. Well, I think the actual curb to curb width is pretty consistent from one side to the other, but I do think, probably to your point, if you factor in that there's a lot of parking on the south side, so there's not enough room to have parking and the bike lane. So that's probably why they're saying there wasn't enough width there.
That's correct.
I think you could do it, but you would be displacing a lot of on-street parking down on that southern end. That's happening. To the previous lady's comment about a lot of cars down there and that kind of thing. So.
It's almost like there's a need for it to be no parking, even though there's not a bike lane there, because it is tight when you go through there. I don't know about the difference in the width of the road, but it is terribly tight with cars parked on the street on that upper end of the road, that last quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
On the south side.
Well, from a speeding standpoint, I would have to say that the parked cars are doing you a favor strictly in terms of speeding. You may not like them for other reasons. I don't deny, but that the presence of those parked cars, if it is a little bit tighter, does make you slow down. And so, just from our perspective on the speeding side,
yes,
that can be a helpful thing.
Very good point.
Yeah.
How long before there's the implementation?
Well, let's talk about that. If any of you have other comments about what we're showing here or the proposal, we'll be happy to come back to this slide. But just moving ahead into next steps for the process or where we go from here. So tonight we're at the red circle there, the neighborhood meeting. What we will do after tonight, if we have consensus on a plan, we will move into the design phase where What I showed you was, I mean, that's as much detail as we have. I have driven out on the street. I've seen it. I watched the intersection for a little bit, that kind of stuff. But we will actually be back. We will make more detailed measurements. We'll have our levels out, and we'll just make sure, and we will document very specifically where we would propose the speed cushions to go. That makes up a set of design plans that will be available to you to review. Once we get back, at that point, we have a decision to make. We can come back to you and we can talk through that again. This is in the light blue circle where it says second neighborhood meeting if needed. But what we used to do a required second meeting, and what a lot of neighborhoods told us was, well, we didn't really need a second meeting. We told you we like the speed cushions, just go design them and let's move this thing forward. And so that's why we made it optional. If usually we'll do one if there's controversy or we want to change something significantly or whatever. But if you like what you saw and you think we can just move ahead, we're happy to do that too. Either way, we end up at the online ballot process at the next to last circle there. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's a mandatory 6-week period there. And then if that passes, we get into the construction queue. And you see in all of these just some idea of how long each of these steps take us. The construction queue is by far the longest. We still are saying 8 to 10 months. However, we think once it leaves the ballot, we as NDOT's team kind of leave the process. And so I can't tell you exactly where they're standing on construction, but we understand it's gotten much quicker. They've brought on some extra crews, and they're trying to catch up a pretty big backlog of speed cushion projects. So it may still be 8 months. In any case, I don't want you to think that by Halloween or something, these are going to be out there, because that's not likely to happen. We have several steps still to go through. So we like to say 2 months. I can probably be a little quicker than that on the design. A guaranteed 6 weeks for a ballot, and then if it does pass, you're still looking at a number of months, at least half a year, 8 months. So hopefully that gives you some idea of where we are. So I mean, you're looking at all of that. You're looking at probably close to a year at this point, realistically. If you're hoping for speed cushions, I'm sorry to tell you that sounds like a really long time.
It's understandable. So we could look at roughly this time frame in 2026 as being a completed project.
Yeah, hopefully we could be a little quicker than that. Maybe by the beginning of summer, maybe by school letting out or something like that.
Right.
That doesn't sound as bad if we say the end of the school year. School year just getting started. Maybe by the end of it, we could be done.
Yeah, do you mind if I ask, was there anyone, if they didn't mind, that objected, that has any objections to the speed table? If you mind if we table that just so that the folks on Cedarmont are clear on where we are, if there's anyone that objects?
Yeah, I'm happy if anyone feels comfortable and wants to say that. If you're not comfortable in this forum, feel free. I'm going to give you my email address at the end, or you can go through that engage page, however you want to do it. But yeah, that's what we're here for. If anyone says, hey, I really think this is a bad idea, I'm against it, that's fine too. That happens often at these meetings. And but I don't want to put anybody on the spot either, so don't feel like you have to do that. But let me talk about this ballot process, because that is the formal way. If you are opposed, anyone is opposed, the best way we've come up with, because we know that this type of a solution is not for everybody, and not everybody often feels exactly the same way. So the best way we know to go about making a decision like this is just to put it back into the hands of the neighborhood. So we came up with this ballot process that every street that has speed cushions had to go through this same process. So if you go on a street that's got cushions, it's because they voted for it. People wanted it. And so what we will do is once the design plans are posted online, we will be sending out cards like you see here. And these will, I'll tell you who's going to get these cards, but It's basically just going to have that little code on it, or you can also call, or if someone doesn't have internet access or whatever, they can call NDOT and do their vote by phone. And you're basically just going to tell them your name and your address, verify that it's your property and you're either for it or you're not. And at the end of 6 months, or excuse me, 6 weeks, we take up all of those results, and if 2/3 of the people have voted in favor of it, we'll do the project. And so that's the process. It doesn't matter how many people vote. It only matters 2/3 of the people that did vote have to be in favor of it. The people that, go ahead, it sounded like a question was about to be asked.
Yeah, this is Nancy Parker again. I got one because I have frontage on Cedarmont, but I know none of my neighbors that live on Cedar Creek, understandably, got the notice. And I actually thought a lot of them told me they were coming and I haven't seen them. But so my question is, I know they are interested in it, but they weren't available attending tonight. Can those ballots be sent to the people on Cedar Creek Drive also? Or no?
They cannot, except for the people that live on the corner. So this slide shows you who is eligible to vote. Now, to come to these meetings, we're happy for everybody, anyone and everyone.
Gotcha.
We want people to know about it, but to actually weigh in and say, I'm for this or I get this, that's limited to people who own property along the frontage of the project that we're working on. So in that case, you have to own property that abuts the right of way for Cedarmont Drive from Old Hickory to Barnes.
Right.
Okay. That includes people that,
logical.
so you could have a Cedar Creek address or any other side street address if you were on the corner there of Cedarmont. So the properties that we have highlighted there, this just gives you, this is not the whole project, but just to give you some idea. You see the properties up there at Old Hickory I did not highlight, and that's because we do not ballot commercial properties. We don't ballot vacant properties, like if there's not a structure on it. Churches we usually do. I don't think you have any churches on this project. And then you get all kind of weird things, condominiums, apartment complexes. I don't think you have any of that stuff. You may have someone who owns more than one piece of property. On this project, in that case, we only ballot one time, so any one owner can only get one vote. We have some streets where one person virtually owns the whole street, and so they would be the only ones to say. So anyway, that's some of the rules, but yeah, for the most part, it's just. And I will stress, it is the owner. So if you are a tenant of the property, all of these notices are going to go to your landlord. Feel free to influence them however you're able to, but those are the people that get the ballots. Often those can be out of town. We're sending ballots all over the country, I guess, because we go to whoever is the registered owner of the property. I did mention I'd give you some contact information. I'm Jeff. I'm the one in green down at the bottom. You can feel free to email me. Also feel free to include in that the NDOT TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov email address. That's generic, but that's because there's more than one person at NDOT that works on this, so they all have access to that. And then again, that's just that same QR code for Engage Nashville that we looked at earlier. Just some contact information there. That's all the information I have. We don't have to end. If there are questions or comments, happy to stay on and answer those. But it's a beautiful evening in Nashville, Tennessee, and I don't want to hold anybody inside unnecessarily.
Yes, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
We've lived here on, this is Jan Asselman. Hello, everybody. We've lived here at 368 Cedarmont for over 24 years in the same house, and it's not even the same street at all. In fact, now we call it, sarcastically, we call it thoroughfare, Cedarmont thoroughfare. And I just can't see how this would be acceptable. I mean, it's just dangerous. It's furious. It's strangers, and it's a vein that has just been, it's just pitiful. My neighbor Lynn next door, I saw her yesterday. Lynn Jones, she's high up in the fire department. In fact, she's a captain. She moved. She sold her house. And then now we're going to move. But everybody can act really calm and polite. But I'm just, we're going to move away from this. It's like an interstate thoroughfare. Love everybody. All my neighbors love them, but we can't take this traffic anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But are you in favor of the traffic calming things they presented tonight, or no?
Anything they can do. Anything is better than nothing. Yes.
Yeah, I hate to hear that, but I can certainly empathize. Every meeting we come to like this, people have, the most horrible stories about things that they have experienced on their streets, and that's really terrible. And so all we can do is, put down these types of devices that I hate we have to. They're not convenient. I wish we didn't have to do it, but they have been shown to be effective. I would say they're not 100% foolproof. You will still have someone who just continues to drive very fast,
Right.
But it slows down. Almost everybody. You don't want to damage your car or anything, and just flying over them is not good.
Can I say just one more thing, and then I'll shut up?
Mm-hmm.
The horrible moat, the cement, ditch that we have in front of our house. Also, it's just bad. Well, a car went into it recently, and it became the car. It was some teenagers doing some joyriding, and the car became airborne, and it flipped around and went into our ditch. It was like just wedged in there. It's a miracle nobody got hurt. But this is a wild street. Y'all, I can't be quiet or calm. Yeah, I use the word calm, but this is just a wild street.
Yeah.
What she's talking about is the storm sewer. There is I call it the culvert. It goes from Cedarmont Circle all the way down, because 23 to 24, my yard was full of equipment when they put all the stuff under Cedar Creek Drive was closed, and they redid it. And I know one of the neighbors, Sabrina up there, she was on earlier. I don't know if she still is. In her area, the side of the culvert next to the road is gone. It is falling down. And I thought they're doing this, so they would probably go up and fix that. But again, that is storm sewer. That's a little different situation. But again, it makes it even there. You really can't get over too far because it's leaving nothing there, and that whole area is just falling in.
Right.
Her house,
Hey, Nancy.
there, but on the roadside, it has totally fallen away, and it's been that way for I don't know how many years. I've lived here for 38 years, and it's been there.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Sabrina, and I'm just chiming in because you mentioned that storm drain.
Yeah.
I have to say, I guess the speed cushions would be a better option, but I think I was thankful for the storm drain because it has stopped 3 vehicles from crashing right into my house. They on 3 different occasions. On 2 occasions, the car was landed in that storm drain on its side, and on 1 occasion, the young man was stopped by that light pole in front of my driveway. So I see that one of those cushions looks like it's going to be placed right before my driveway, so I'm kind of thankful.
Well,
I agree. I agree. It does need to be there, but they do need to repair the wall for you too.
Yeah, and that wall came down because of that car.
Yeah, that's
that caught fire.
That's possible.
Yeah. So this goes right under Cedar Creek. Is that? Because I see it looks like a new culvert has been put in there, and it was repaved at Cedar Creek.
It's at Cedar Creek and Cedarmont. Yeah, well, don't get me started on that.
Okay.
I got yard problems because of it that I'm working on. But yeah, the caissons, these huge, big, round cement caissons, they've replaced all of them from my house. And I know the Worley, I believe the Worleys are on too, which is my neighbor across the road. They're on the other side of Cedar Creek and Cedarmont. And our yard, both of our yards were dug up, and they dug up the whole road. Two people actually drove through my full yard because they didn't want to, they were going too fast and couldn't make the turn. But anyway, so all of that part of it is new. And I thought probably, well, they're doing that. It seemed like they would have fixed her area, but obviously that didn't occur. And there's some other areas which it's still there, but it's not in good shape. But that's probably water department issues.
Yeah.
Because that's the storm drain.
It's stormwater. That's right.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay. Yeah, I see it. I did not notice it while I was out there, but I see it. Yeah. Someone called it a moat. Yeah, I see why you call it a moat. Yeah. It's a very deep ditch, isn't it?
It's probably 4 feet.
Yeah, I am. Already
It's
complained.
at least, I think, 4 feet.
With straight sods. So if you go down in that,
No.
you're not coming back out. Yeah. Okay. The other thought I had, and we've done this on one or two projects, not often. Let me go back to is sometimes on these curves, we mentioned a minute ago, slowing down to get to the curves, but sometimes people don't slow down around the curves so much. And so what we have done before is on the inside of the curve, like where there is that buffered area for the bike lane, we could put a few of those plastic delineators that would keep people from drifting over into that, bike lane area to, let them keep speed as they go around a curve, if that makes sense. So we can do that to kind of just keep people in their lane, essentially, because it is a fairly curvy street. So if you had any interest in that, then that could be something that would help at those locations. I really think, in combination with the speed cushions, you may or may not need that, but it could be something that we did as well. Also, if there's curve and people are just not seeing it and they're leaving the road because of it, maybe that would be another justification there to put a little bit of delineation in those curves.
Sir, can you hear me?
I can.
Is this, I don't mean to be over emotional, but this ditch, I mean, maybe it's another department, got to take it up with somebody else. Maybe it's not the right person we're talking to about the ditch, but this ditch is eroding so bad that, so you're going to control the speed of the traffic, but the dang ditch is caving in, it's caving in on itself. The only way we could hold our cement little walls up is we put some piers in there to try to hold it up. Others people are just totally eroding down into the ditch. My ditch is about 7 foot deep. I ended up one night, just the fire department had to rescue me because my car was only held up by one tire. So that ditch is a major bad thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can. The best I could probably do is double check to make sure that there's not a project coming for that.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
If there is, we probably wouldn't change a lot about our process. One of the other nice things about the cushions that we use is if in the future it needs to be repaved, I mean, obviously it will be, but in the short future, or there's a construction project or a utility needs to come in there and work, we can simply unbolt those and take them out of the way and do the work, and then you can put them back at the end. So anything that we do as part of this project won't necessarily change work that's otherwise going to happen.
The ditch or the storm culvert, whatever you want to call it, is an entirely different thing. But one you could do, Jan, if you go to the Nashville hub, you can find, I can't tell you which option to choose, but you can report it there. So it will be on file with the city that here is an issue that needs to be addressed. And then we'll get in touch with you or do whatever it is they do. But that is there for all of us. Just go to, I can't give you the address, but it's Nashville Hub. And complaints on whatever. There's a whole trees. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do on there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
good. Any other comments?
We appreciate y'all coming, just caring about us over here on the street and what you're doing. And that's wonderful what you're going to do to slow the traffic down. I want to say bravo. Thank you.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you all again for taking the time this evening and for, applying into the process. Hopefully we'll come up with something that will be a nice benefit. I'm a resident of Davidson County. This is really a nice service, sometimes that it's not a critical issue. We kind of leave it as discretionary, but at least you have the option to kind of pick it up and
Thank you.
get a project done if you want. Any final things as we close out here? All right. Well, again, this meeting's been recorded. Give us a couple of days. This is a holiday, but maybe by middle of next week or so, this should be online. Let me show you where to find it. That QR code there, or TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. This is where all of that map was that I showed you. A lot of information about the traffic calming program is there, and the recording of this meeting, there'll be a link to that here in the next couple of days as well. So if you do need access to this or want to share that with somebody, feel free to do that. With that, we will bid you all a very good evening. Thank you again for your time and your interest, and we look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Big thanks.